Hello guys, welcome to the part 2 of the Python and OOP fundamentals recitation. In this part, we discuss object-oriented programming with Python. Now, some of us might be familiar with the concept of OOP, while some of us might just have like little knowledge about what OOP is. Anyways, OOP just helps us to organize our code in a way that is easy to understand, that is reusable, and then helps minimize basically code maintenance cost. It breaks down complex applications or systems into smaller systems, which help minimize the whole complexity of the system. Like same as all programming languages, right? Python uses the notion of classes and objects to define OOP. Now, classes are basically blueprints or templates from which objects are created. They detail the characteristics or properties an object should have. And these properties in programming terms, we refer to them like as instance variables, methods, or even abstract methods, and so on. So when an object of a class is created, it then would have all these attributes defined by the class. So basically, when you create an object from a class, the object will have all these variables and all these methods of its own, right? So here we will just simply illustrate the concept of OOP in Python using this example. So here we've created a class for book, right? Here we use the class keyword in Python to say to show that we are defining a class, right? And then book is the name of the class we're defining, then a colon, then everything indented as usual to show that all these statements are under the class book, right? So the first thing we have is the init function, using the def keyword defining function here. So this init function acts as like a constructor. It basically assigns variables or member variables their values. Here we use self so that this variable title is a member variable that belongs to the class book. Even in the constructor function, we'll see this self here. This self here basically shows that this method or this function belongs to the book class. So basically, argument really starts from title to quantity to author to price. So we are assigning these values, right, to these member variables. Now, a class can just have one function, like can just, in this case, just has this constructor function here, and it assigns values to member variables. And then in this next step, what we just did was to instantiate an object or create an object from this class. Right? So using book, we use the book class here, we just called book and passed in the argument to create an object book 1 and create another object book 2 here. And then what we try to do is to print out this object. You see that what is printed here is just the book, so that the book 1 or book 2 is part of the class book, and then the address at which these objects are stored. Now to change that, to actually help to actually print out some information about these objects, we can add the REPR function. You see the way it's written here, 2 underscores before and 2 underscores after. This is a Python defined method for it can be used with a class. Then so this method, what it basically does is when you call the print function, this method, if you have defined this method in your class, it returns whatever this method returns. So here, this method, we have defined this, we're defining this method to return this string. Right? And this string just consists of just telling us the different member variables in this class, right? The values of the different member variables in this class. So here now, also just to point out, I also created like a very simple function here, right? To get the date the book was published. You don't really need to stress yourself about this, just like a simple function. So now, when we now instantiate this object, right, using the book class, and then we print. So the print method basically comes to this class. So remember, this book 1 is an object of this class book, and then it calls this method. So the print method calls this REPR method, and whatever this method returns, it returns that to us. Right? So here it has returned this string for 1 and returned this one for book 2, just like we have assigned their values here. You see that when you look at it, it matches up. So that's what the REPR function does. It works with the print function, right? Now we can also get the individual attributes of each of these book objects. So for book one, we try to get the author by using dot method and passing the variable. So this variable is basically, okay, in book one objects, what value is in the author? Remember, book one has the frog. No, James Twain, that's the author, right? When you match it up, see the author is James Twain. So when you create an object for this book, use book one, right? This object book one for this book, you passed in James Twain as the author. So when you do book one dot author, you are trying to call the variable, and that gives you James Twain. Same thing with the book two dot title. It helps you to get the title, and you can also call methods. Remember, the get published is a method, or rather a function. Just terminology. So it's a function or a method that just returns day plus a string. So when you call get published, remember it's a function, so you have to call the two parentheses. These ones are variables, so no parentheses, right? So it returns whatever that function is meant to return. So in this case, this function returns day plus this. So it returns that here. Okay. Next, we just treat the concept of encapsulation in OOP. Now, encapsulation prevents basically access to instance variables of an object. So we have talked about instance variables, right? This prevents like unwanted access to like sensitive data and helps hide information. Yeah, these inaccessible variables are referred to as private variables, right? So they are called the private variables of a class, and they are created using double underscore in front of the variable. So in this class definition we have here, so we have still defined, you're still working with the class, the book class. The only difference with what we have done before is here we try to create two private variables. And like I said, we create private variables using double underscore, then price. So this shows that self.price is a private variable, same with self.actDiscount, private variable, because of the double underscore here. Everything remains the same. So when we create two instances of the book, now we print as usual, normally because of the REPR function. And then we try to call the title for book one, that returned the frog, which is normal. But when you try to access the discount variable, you see it says the book object has no attribute discount. Not like it doesn't have it, it has it here, but just that this variable is private, and so we are unable to access any value it has. So that's just the whole point of encapsulation. It hides that variable from a user such that it's not able to access it, right, directly by calling it as a method on this book object. Same thing with the price. You can't access that, right? So one way to then go around this is to define like setters and getters. Setters and getters basically help you return this it helps you return or access these variables. So you cannot access them directly. You can access them using setters. They're just basically functions that help you set values to those variables and get the values of those variables. So here we have just defined a function. It takes in the discount, right? And then it sets that discount to the member variable discount, right? So it takes in the discount and it's setting that discount, this discount, you pass in this discount and it sets it to the member variable, the discount member variable of the class or of the object now. And then we have the getter function that gets the price. So we can't access the price directly. We can also do, so here I just did some manipulations but at the end what it returns is basically returns the price, right? It returns the price. So that's just all I've added to this function, these two methods. So now we also create instances, and then we can then set discount. So when we call the set discount function or method, you pass in a value that's 0.15, that is your discount. So yeah, passing the value, and then it sets that value to the member variable discount. And then when you can then do get price, and then that returns your price. So it uses that discount to get the price. So this is just basically dummy stuff. It's just not like real something, just dummy. But what I also wanted to point out is that now you can now return this member variable that is private using this function get price. So you're able to return that value get price. Right? So next we look at inheritance. Inheritance is another concept of OOP. This allows like a new class to inherit instance variables and methods from another class. Now, the new class inheriting these variables and method is known as the subclass, while the class inherited from is the parent class or superclass. So if we wanted to create a class for, say, a novel or academic, a novel is a book, right? Or academic books. Academic is also like a type of books, right? Academic books. So it won't make sense for us to start creating the instance variables and the methods we've created for a normal book, because both novels and academic books are books. So what we want to do is to just inherit those instance variables and methods from the parent class, now in this case book, and then create a class for the novel, right? So the same way, what we just do different to show that this novel class is inheriting some variables or methods, or inheriting the variables and methods of the parent class, right, is to put a parenthesis. Remember in this class here, this had no parenthesis, right? Because this is a parent class. We didn't inherit from anywhere. So, but here we are defining a novel class to inherit from a book class. So you just put the class you want to inherit from here. Remember, also note that you can inherit from more than one class. For this example, we're just inheriting from book class, but you can inherit from more than one class. Then to do that, just add more arguments to these parentheses. Now, also we have the constructor as usual. Every class you have a constructor. Now, but one thing you should notice is that we have this super.init function, super.init statement. So what this does is to assign these variables to the parent class. Remember that this novel class is inheriting instance variables from the parent class. So those instance variables from the parent class are title, quantity, author, and price. From this parent class, we have title, quantity, author, price. We even have discounts, but the discount is none, set to none, so it's not from here, right? It's not from this argument. So what this super does, the super helps you instantiate the parent class, right? It helps you instantiate the parent class, like the variables, the member variables in the parent class, and then you can add like new variables for this particular novel class. Yeah. So and then you can also add like another method, right, for this novel class. So now when you create a book novel, you need to pass the title, the quantity, the author, the price, and the pages. So these first four things, which are these first four things here, the first four arguments here, instantiates the parent class. So and then this pages is being here is used here to instantiate the member variable of this novel class, self.pages. This variable is for this class, right? So now when you so you can see now from here now you can do novel book dot title, right? And you're able to get the London Bridge. This this variable title is not in this class. You can see that it is not in this class, but because of you are inheriting instance variable from the parent class book, you are able to access that particular variable using this object of a novel, right? The same thing, you can also access the methods of the parent class. You can set discount and you can get spread, because these methods here are from the parent class, not from the subclass or child class. And also I've illustrated that here as well, right? So these ones here are pages. Pages is from its class now, from the novel class itself. And get rating, just a dummy method, is also from this parent class, from this child class. So these ones, we already know that it's accessible. So you see that's the concept of inheritance. So you can create a class to inherit variables and methods from like parent classes. Now the last concept we'll look at is polymorphism. Now polymorphism is basically just changing methods in superclass by redefining them to work in your subclass. So for example, we know that this method is in the parent class, and that's why we can print, right? We can change when we print. Remember, when you print the novel book is an object of novel class, right? It prints just this, right? And this novel book is cutting from the parent class, not from the novel class. Now, you can redefine what that method does in the class, now in the novel class, in the child class. So here, that method REPR in the parent class, I'm redefining what it does in this novel class. That's in the child class. So that when I instantiate these variables, like even when I instantiate the objects, yeah, instantiate the object using the novel class, create an object of a novel class. I can do the discount. Remember, set discount is from the parent class. Now, when you print, you see that it has adapted to printing from using this format you specified here, not the one that was specified by the parent class. Right. So that's what basically polymorphism means, and that's how it works in Python, right? And it's just like also is a concept of OOP. So we have other concepts as well in OOP. One thing we should note though is that method overloading. I know some of you might know what method overloading is. Does not work in Python. Method overloading is basically having like same method with the same name. So same method with the same name, but different arguments or return type. So, but if you really don't know about it, don't worry about it. But it's just to point out that method overloading, you can check it out. What method overloading is doesn't work in Python. Yeah. So with that, I think we have come to the end of this tutorial. And one thing I will do is to encourage you to go through this notebook once again and make sure you understand the discussed concept. Then thanks for watching. Bye.